I'll share this. I'll post it on the YouTube. Um, Welcome everyone. We're going to get started here with our progress monitoring in the new progress monitoring era. We're ushering in this year to use the import function in CISDM rather than relying on direct data entry. So I'm recording the session. I'll be posting it on YouTube. Like I said, I'm not going to spend too much time getting into the details of certainly the QPR. We'll talk a little bit about the progress monitoring logic, but I have a couple of other trainings planned, one next week and then one the following week. And we'll get into more detail on completing the QPR and running the data and stuff like that in those trainings. I've recorded the trainings from last year, so even though the progress entry stuff is out of date, covering the QPR, covering the progress logic and all that kind of stuff will be the same as previous years. So I might edit it a little bit, whatever. We have other resources for that. Yes, I will be sharing those once the trainings are done and make sure that everyone has everything as the quarters are ending. I believe, what is today's date? The 23rd. I don't think anyone is done yet, but we've got some end dates coming up soon. So, progress monitoring. Why did we change our process? So the idea behind this was mostly about time and workflow efficiency. So much of the labor in the progress monitoring period comes in just navigating CISDM and entering all the data. So by using a spreadsheet, a single spreadsheet that we're uploading, it makes the data entry faster. You don't have to wait for different pages to load. You don't have to wait for the menus to come down. Entering the data in the spreadsheet is going to be quicker. You also have more flexibility. So as you'll see, I'm going to pull up a sample sheet here. You can start entering student data, getting the list prepared and everything. You can basically kind of prep before the end of the quarter. Things like attendance and behavior records are often available as soon as the quarter ends because we're pulling those reports and they're sort of live. The thing that takes the most time, in my experience, to get from the school side of it as far as data is the grades. Teachers have to enter them after the quarter. So you can actually go through and enter the data for behavior, for attendance, and things like that before the grades are even out. So you can kind of get ahead of things, and then once the grades are up, then you can enter the grades in the same spreadsheet and all at the same time. And then the other thing that's going to quicken things up is that even though we're going to use two separate spreadsheets for goal and non-goal metrics, the process is identical, and again, you can do it side by side in just different tabs on your computer. So it's going to be a lot faster. You're not going to have to go in and do a separate, CISDM navigation. On the back end, kind of for our sake, this is an opportunity for you, for your program manager, and for us to review the data before we enter it into CISDM, right? So our goal is to really have the most accurate data entered into CISDM as possible. And so we'll have a chance to review it and just make sure that the data is entered appropriately, it's formatted correctly. We'll do as much matching stuff as we can before it's entered. And then once we upload these spreadsheets into CISDM, the data will be in CISDM. You can run the reports on it. You'll see it on the student dashboards. But we're also going to have the records of all these data sheets uploaded. And specifically, one piece of data that we cannot pull out of CISDM currently is the number of days absent, the number of days missed, excused and unexcused that we put in when it comes to progress monitoring. Whenever we get reports out of CISDM, we only get either the total number of days absent as far as a baseline or a percentage as far as the baseline. CISDM calculates that percentage for us. In the data entry, we're going to have access to those days missed, and that is actually really valuable data from studying attendance in great detail. So that's just a little bit, for me and Jacob, that's something that we're interested in. But ultimately, our goal is to try to save you time. So here's the workflow for progress monitoring. It's going to be I think, incredibly brief. It doesn't involve clicking around in CISDM at all for you. So the first thing is you want to prepare your progress data. And you can start this now. Get ready. You're going to make copies of the upload template. Very important that we make copies. Please do not edit the templates themselves. I'll walk through it to show you how to make a copy in Google Drive. And you're going to make a copy of both sheets, one for the goal metrics and one for the non-goal metrics. There are two different templates. You do have to use the goal template for the goal progress monitoring and the non-goal metric template for the non-goal metric progress monitoring. I'll explain what the difference is as we get into the sheets. After that, you're going to populate your list of case managed students. A couple of ways to go about this. I recommended here using the case list detail report, the metric tracking summary. I did try to run that right now before we started the training, and it was not working. So the metric summary is a little bit weird. So I'm also going to add the goal achievement report. If you run a goal achievement report right now for your site, you're going to get a list of all of the students that you've entered in baselines for that have any student that you have targets for. Okay. So the case list detail will give you the list of students and their ID numbers that are currently enrolled. Metric tracking and goal achievement reports will pull, the target metrics or the baseline metrics that you've entered. And that's going to be important because, we need the student names and IDs to match exactly as they've been entered in CISDM. So if you're like just entering in new student IDs or names, you might, make an error, or, you might have entered the student's name differently than the way you enter it in the spreadsheet. So it's really important to match those with CISDM. So populate that list of case managed students beforehand. Also, you're going to see when we get into the spreadsheet that the baseline data isn't in the spreadsheet, and there's no place to put in the baseline data in the spreadsheet. So when you're pulling that goal achievement report, that's going to be important for the baselines. The baselines are less important for the non-goal metrics because we don't have to monitor whether or not they're progressing, but for your sake, you'll want to know those baselines for your goal metrics. So you've populated your list of case managed students. You've mostly filled out, the template a little bit, and then you're going to enter in the updated metrics as soon as they're available. So that, like I said, ABCs can be entered at different times. You can come back and edit them. Everything is editable and changeable and flexible until you move into the next step to review and submit. So once you have all your data prepared, I'm going to recommend that you take a minute to just review it for accuracy. There's a link here, and there's a link in the resources that I've shared in the chat for data entry guidelines, which will walk through like what to do for academic metrics, what to make sure you're looking out for behavior metrics and that sort of thing, and some other fields in the data entry sheet. So make sure the data looks good and it's reviewed for consistency on your end. Then you're going to drag or make a copy of that spreadsheet and put it into a folder called the submission folder in the data resources drive. And from there, Jacob and I will review the data and enter it, upload it into CISDM. When we upload progress monitoring data into CISDM, we get a report back of any errors. So occasionally there's, ID numbers are wrong. If you assign a student a metric for English 2 and then you try to enter progress monitoring for English 1, it's going to show that you have the wrong metric. So there's going to be some little misses here and there that come in. And some things can be adjusted on our end. We might try to re-upload to reduce the errors that you have to correct. But we may reply with some errors or omissions or things that weren't updated that we couldn't fix, and we'll need you to help us on. In those cases for the errors or omissions, you either have the option to enter progress directly into CISDM or to just update the spreadsheet, resubmit it, and we'll re-upload it. We don't have to worry about duplication and stuff like that. If you make the correct changes, then only the records that were changed will be updated. The last thing we're going to do is, after all this is entered, you're going to run the goal achievement report for yourself. This is going to be for your quarterly progress report, but it's also going to verify that all the students that you expected to be progress monitored were progress monitored. Okay, so I think it makes the process just a little bit different, but a lot more forgiving in terms of your flexibility and running through this. And basically, the core of your work is going to be looking at this the data entry spreadsheet and making sure that everything is accurate in there. Just some tips and reminders, some tricks, some suggestions here. In the spreadsheets, we've been careful to use verified fields, which means that many of them have drop-down menus. So when you choose your school, use the drop-down menu. When you choose your courses or your goal metrics for for attendance or for behavior, use the drop-down menu to make sure that you're marking the classes as the correct classes in the ways that match up with system data. Basically, anything that we enter into the spreadsheet has to match exactly, like word for word, letter for letter, to what is aligned in SysDM for the data to merge in there. And so it's very foolproof. Don't worry about this. We tested it out. We progress monitored hundreds of students this way last year with very, very high success rate. I think I uploaded probably close to 500 different student progress, actually maybe over 1,000 student progress entries, and had less than a dozen errors overall in the year. So very, very error proof, but use the drop-down menus when you see them available. As I said, student names and ID numbers must match exactly, which means that, again, if you entered the student name into SysDM with a spelling error, we must either correct that error in SysDM or enter the data for that student under the error-prone name. But the student IDs and names must match exactly what is in SysDM. And then this is just kind of a suggestion, is to enter the data in groups by metric and not by student. In the past, you would go into the student and then you would do their goal metrics and their non-goal metrics and kind of go through student by student. In this case, I think it may make more sense to do, okay, I'm going to sit down and do behavior for 20 minutes. So you pull up your behavior reports or whatever it is you're getting the data from your school system. And then you're going through the behavior spreadsheet and completing all the different students who had behavior goals in there. And then you can go through and do all the behavior non-goal metrics at the same time and do that all in one shot rather than going student by student, because as you'll see, the spreadsheet is broken down by metric and not by student. Again, non-goal metrics must be entered into a separate spreadsheet. All progress for non-goal metrics is monitored as no goal assigned. And so in the non-goal metric spreadsheet, the only option you have to choose for progress is no goal assigned. And that guarantees that every metric you put into that spreadsheet will be uploaded as a non-goal metric. Do remember to monitor all your non-goal metrics. We've had a little bit of flexibility and uncertainty around that in the past. With this process, because we're doing the uploads all at once, we're going to expect to see all the non-goal metrics and goal metrics monitored every quarter. So it should be a lot easier. It doesn't, monitoring non-goal metrics used to add a lot of extra work. If you did that in the past, you had to go through and make a review entry and click through SysDM again a million times to do that. So it's going to be much cleaner this time. On the goal metric side, very important consistency. This is always important. Make sure that you're using the same attendance metric, either the percent for an attendance rate or days absent, as you entered into the baseline. Okay. Same for the academic measure. This is especially important for academics. Make sure you're using letter grade or percentage in alignment with what you've entered in the past. That is actually more important when we're doing these data uploads, because if you entered a student's baseline for an 80% for their English class and then you monitor an A, a letter grade, it may not match up. And so it's important to just be consistent in how you're monitoring and entering in baselines and progress monitoring throughout the year for all of your metrics. When it comes to SEL metrics, this is also very general. We're only updating the SEL metrics if you've given new assessments. So if you've given a bunch of seed assessments, that will be actually a very easy spreadsheet to progress monitor if you haven't given new seed assessments to any of those students, because you'll just basically put in what their baseline score is again and mark it as no progress, positive or negative, depending on how you're feeling about the student, just as we've done in the past. But you won't really be entering in new SEL metrics until you've given new assessments for those goal areas. And then always just take some time to double check the progress monitoring logic. The core question is, has the metric changed and in what direction? If the metric hasn't changed, then we're at a no progress. If the metric has changed, then we're either going to be progressing or declined, depending on the direction. So just a couple of reminders there for progress monitoring. Just wanted to show this quick chart of progressing and non-progressing again. So if we're seeing improvement in the metric area, meaning going closer to the target, we're progressing. If we're declining, it means that the metric is moving away from the target or in a negative direction. And then if the metric is unchanged, like an SEL metric or like a behavior metric or the same exact grade, then it's going to be no progress. And positive or negative is depending on other factors such as what's going on in the student's life. One question I like to ask is if the student continued to perform in this way quarter after quarter, would they meet their goal at the end of the year? If it's a yes, then it would be a positive. If it's a no, then it would be a negative kind of thing. So that is the most artful, most interpretive part of progress monitoring. It can get very complicated when we're thinking about comparing end-of-year metrics towards quarter-based baselines, and so I will talk more about that in the later trainings. So you can either come to one of those or watch the videos for one of those to get the true details on to get in the nitty-gritty of how to think through progress monitoring. But for now, the purpose of this session is really just to show how to use the spreadsheet. I will share this resource after we're done here, and so there's a link to the progress monitoring folder, a link to the walkthrough and instructions. Again, we tested this out with about half a dozen site coordinators last year, including Easton Middle School, which has a caseload over 200 students. They have 4 case managers, and it was successful in that model. So all of the walkthrough instructions are based off of that process that we've used in the past. So it should be. I hope it's not intimidating. I hope it's pretty clear. But please do take a look at those resources before you're getting towards your due date for your QPR and stuff like that. Jacob and I are happy to answer any questions, happy to support you through the process, look over your data sheets before we upload them. Anything you need, just the more time we have to look at it and give you that clarifying information, the better. But don't ever hesitate to reach out to us. So a quick walkthrough here. So if you clicked on the link in the chat here, you would open a folder that looks a lot like this. It has our make a copy templates. So make a copy. In the make a copy bracket, you can put your school name, so you can see LCTI we have here already sitting in there. You can make a copy. You don't have to work on the file in this folder. If you want to make the copy and bring it into a private folder that no one else can see, that's fine. If you're on a nonce team, I believe he has already prepared a lot of these spreadsheets for everyone, and they're stored somewhere. So that's fine. If your program director has a process carved out for you, that's fine. But if you have nothing, you'll come here, you'll make a copy of this template, and then you'll start working on that template. You are welcome to work in your templates in this part of the folder, like iDivine is working here. That's perfectly acceptable. We're not like really going into. I'm gonna use this sheet as an example, but we're not like going into it and like checking on it and making sure that things are going on. We won't work with anything until it's dropped into this submission folder. So folder 0 is the instructions. It's going to have a copy of this slideshow, a link to this video probably. It has the data entry guidelines. It has the import instructions. It has a little checklist, another way to think through this. So we've just tried to provide different ways to think through how to track how to keep track of this process and do it accurately. Going back into the root folder. Once we have completed the upload and have successfully uploaded, we're going to move the data to a folder called completed uploads. As you can see, that folder is shared, so you will be able to have access to that data. You don't necessarily need to do that. This is where we're going to archive it for ourselves to know where to put it, or to process it and study our attendance data specifically after the end of the year. In the submissions folder, you can just drop it in here in the root folder and we'll organize it for you. So if you just want to just put it here and we have a list of 50 different sheets, that's great. Just drop it here. If you want to get more specific, you can come in and drop it into the specific marking period and under your specific program director. But again, just dragging and dropping or making a copy of your data and dropping it in this submission folder will be sufficient. So to make a copy in Google Drive, you just right-click on the full file that you want to make a copy of. You click Make a Copy. It takes a second or two, and then you'll see a copy of Make a Copy, and this is now a folder that you could edit and begin entering your progress monitoring data into. In this case, I've made a copy of the non-goal metric, so I'm going to say this is sample school. You might want to put in quarter 1. You're going to do a different sheet for each quarter, but you can build off of your old sheets. So when we get to the second quarter, you can pull up your first quarter spreadsheet and clear all the data out of the metrics and update them for the second quarter if you want. You can create a completely new one from scratch if you've added a bunch of students. That might be a better approach. But we'll say this is sample school Q1, non-goal metric imports. So across the bottom of the spreadsheet, we have all the different all the different possible metrics. As a rule, please do not edit, remove, change around the order of any of these spreadsheets down at the bottom. If you do, it's not a big deal. We'll figure it out. But as a matter of practice, please enter in the data only on the spreadsheets that you need. So if you don't have any students that you're tracking with tardies, don't delete that sheet. Just leave it there, leave it empty. That's totally fine. You can see it has this one drop-down field is there. Don't worry about it. As long as there's no student ID in school and stuff, it won't, it's not going to have an error. So what happens when we import is that CISDM basically reads through this spreadsheet line by line, sheet by sheet, going through and uploads all the data that way. So it's very important that the things are in the correct sequence. You will see on this attendance rate metric sheet that we have this gray column H. This I added in. And this will be removed before we upload the file, but you don't have to worry about that. Just what it's going to do. It's going to show you the attendance rate as a percentage, because we realize that when you enter just the number of excused and unexcused and days in the report, the sheet won't calculate the percentage of the attendance rate at that time. So it might be hard to figure out. You might have to do the math yourself to figure out whether they're progressing or not, or what their actual attendance rate is. So that's just there just for demonstration purposes, so that when you put in, that we had 2 unexcused and 1 excused, and we had 45 days in our quarter, it's going to calculate a percentage for you, so you know that that's 93%, and you can determine whether that is good or bad relative to their goal. We delete this column altogether before we upload the sheets, which is no big deal, but just that's an FYI. Anything that has a little gray arrow here is going to be a drop down. It's a verified field. So here is a list of schools. Again, the list of schools has to match exactly what's in CISDM. So this list has been pre-populated to match exactly how the schools are named in CISDM. Something like 10th and Penn, is it ampersand sign? Is it an and sign? Is it MS? Is it IS? Is it intermediate? Those things, they've been put into CISDM in a specific way. We can always change things, but this list of schools should match. You'll have your student ID number, first and last name, and basically every field kind of needs to be filled out. If you're going to be updating a metric, you're going to fill out every field. Grading period and assessment date, that will be the date that your quarter ends. So let's say that's 10/30/2025. You'll add that in there, and that's the date that's going to be appended to it. Grading period, we have the selections. It's just 1, 2, 3, 4, but they're there as verified fields anyway. Progress against goal. Since this is a non-goal metric sheet, you're going to see that it is just no goal assigned for this metric. That's the only option available there. So every metric that we put in here will be updated as a non-goal metric. Was there a modified support plan? You can make an entry here. I believe if you miss this field, it won't cancel out the upload, but that's something that we'll figure out as we're going through the changes and errors with you. Notes, entirely optional. And then the last two, last two fields here are school year and organization. A quick hack here in Google Drive. We have the school year set for 2025-26, and this, again, this formatting, this way of writing the date has to match exactly how CISDM handles dates. So this is matched exactly so that it will upload into CISDM. When you have data entered into any field and you see the little blue dot at the bottom right-hand corner of the cell, you can drag that down and it will duplicate the data across all the fields that you select. So this is helpful for, everyone's going to be monitored in 2025-26. Everyone's going to be monitored here at CIS of Eastern Pennsylvania. So that does have to be selected for every student. So if you were monitoring 30 students for their attendance rate, you can come and just click, drag it down here for all 30 students and have it in there. So that'll save you a little bit of time entering it. You can do the same for your school. Drag it down. And we got 30 schools ready, and then you can just start copying and pasting names and IDs and first and last name. It is unfortunate some reports combine the students' first and last name. Some reports separate the students' first and last name. To upload it, we do have to separate the first and last names. If you're having trouble doing that, reach out to Jacob Rye, and we'll show you how to quickly separate those first and last names in the reports we get out of CISDM, whichever report you're using. So we've entered in a bunch of students for their attendance rates. Again, if days absent, if you're not using days absent, if you only use percentages at your school, just leave the sheet blank. Don't worry about it. Just move on. Same with tardies. Most people don't set goals for tardies, so just leave it blank. You don't have to delete it. You don't have to remove it or anything like that. Suspensions are pretty clear. We make sure to scroll over because we do have to include even things like conduct and the GPA and credits needed and everything. So the last one down here is the SEL one. SEL, we have some verified fields for which assessment you're using. So whether it's the SEED assessment and the subscore, or the social engagement survey and their subscores. SEL score is a flexible field, but again, you'll just use the baseline scores if you haven't given a new assessment for those students. And then you'll indicate the progress for their goal. In here for the progress monitoring import, this is progress monitoring is the goal metric one. Same exact format, same exact sheet. The only difference is that the progress against goal is going to load our progressing, not progressing, declined, exited before progress known. For the purposes of quarterly progress monitoring, everything should be progressing, declined, or no progress. Exited before progress known should be something that we're entering in ahead of time for any students that need to be exited before the end of the quarter. So I wanted just to show you divines here. So this is helpful because what he's done is, and this is why I want to show it because it's a great example, is that he's filled out and he's prepared. So now he has these students already that he's entered in for attendance rate. We don't have the data yet, right? But he knows how many days are in the marking period. He knows when the quarter is going to end. He knows what quarter it is. And he's got the dates and the affiliate all filled out here, right? So in that prep now, when the time comes and the quarter ends, he can just pull up that attendance report and just quickly enter the data field by field by field and get these percentages and then determine what the progress was going forward there. You can see days absent is empty, so is tardies. We do have a handful of suspensions, so he's pulled that list to know which students have the suspensions, and so forth and so on down the list. Probably some course grades, some course grades in here. Maybe some credits needed also in here. So this is, again, how you can what's it called? Work ahead of time, right? Pave the road ahead of you for a little bit just to make things a little bit easier. So you're welcome to do all that prep now as soon as you make the copy. But again, do make a copy and edit it in your own personal sheet, and not with everyone else. All right, so that is really the core of this training. I'll open it up to any to questions at this point. But again, we have some future trainings planned. I believe there's one in a week from today, which will be more detailed about the quarterly progress report and thinking through specific student progress. Those are timed to be more along when the quarters are actually ending, so you actually have data to talk about. So any questions from the group right now about this process? Yeah, go ahead, Johnny.
If we have any questions, can we reach out and maybe schedule like a call or something if we need to?
Absolutely. Yep.
All right. Appreciate it.
Reach out to me or Jacob or both of us, and we'll be there to support. All right. So I'll ask for questions a second time. Any questions about this? Concerns? All right, so I'll process this video and upload it, and I'll probably just append it to our data newsletter and let folks know that it's available there. Again, there will be a link dropped in the progress monitoring folder for this. Like I said, we tested this out, so I'm fairly confident that this will be a pretty foolproof and quick process, but it is new. And so I just appreciate your patience and understanding with taking on something a little bit new, and there being a little bit of kinks to work out as we get started here. We've scaled it for half a dozen coordinators. Now we're going to have about 40 or 50 people doing it. So could add just a little bit of complication, but hopefully it should go smoothly, and hopefully it'll save your time. The last thing I'll say is after the quarter ends and we've gone through this, appreciate any feedback, suggestions, anything like that we can, change the training, change the guidance. Can't change the upload process too much, but we can work around things because it's important that it works for you. So if this fails and is not making your life easier, we'll go back to the other way if we need to. But I do think this will be a lot faster for folks. I think most of you are pretty new here, so you haven't been doing too much progress monitoring in the old school way. And CISDM's gotten a lot faster in the last couple of years, but this has been a roadblock to our quarterly progress reporting for a long time. So,
John?
Yes.
I do have a question. For the non-goal metric, what exactly is that? Because over here we only are dealing with attendance. So what would be what do we put in for non-goal metrics?
So you're even though you're only dealing with attendance and that's the only goal metric, you should still be recording
academic as well.
Yeah, so you should be recording an academic and a behavior baseline for all students, right? Across the network, any student we enroll in CISDM should have at least one goal metric, and then at least baselines for all three ABC areas: attendance, behavior, and courses.
Okay. We have them for attendance and academic. We didn't put any in for
behavior. Okay. Well, we can talk. Actually, yeah, we can talk and sort through if we're going to upload those non-goal metrics for behavior. I know that some of the schools are a little bit more stringent in terms of.
Yeah, we don't even have that information. Sudoku, you already know the issues with Sudoku, so we don't even.
Yeah.
We're not privy to that.
So if you don't have access to it, it's not going to be a big deal. But yeah. So, but if there was a student who you assigned, say, an attendance goal but not an academic goal, you would still monitor their academic metric. and that would be considered a non-goal metric. So it would just say what their baseline was, and then you'll show how the metric changed. And we do run that data on the back end to like show correlation between success in attendance and success on grades, that sort of thing. So it's helpful to have in there.
Okay. Right.
All right. Then with that, we're available for any questions. But thanks for your time this afternoon. And yeah, I'll be here for a little bit. I'm gonna stop the recording. I'll be here for a little bit longer if you have any questions. But yeah, good luck with progress monitoring, and I hope you have a good end of the quarter.
Thank